Good afternoon. Welcome to the Transportation Committee. We're a committee in search of an author. However, we do have a consent calendar.
Move consent.
Second.
And we have a quorum, so before we vote on the consent calendar, could you call the roll, please?
Lowenthal.
Here.
Jeffries.
Here.
Shajian.
Present.
Blumenfield. Benia. Here. Buchanan. Ing. Fortani.
Here.
Gaggiani. Loeb.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Norby.
Here.
Portantino. Solorio. Solorio, you have a quorum.
We have a quorum, thank you. And the consent calendar, first of all, item number 4, SB 750 by Senator Hernandez has been pulled. The consent calendar is item 6, Senate Bill 126 by Steinberg. Item 7, Senate Bill 570 by Rubio. Item 8, Senate Bill 627 by Senator Walters. And item 9, Senate Bill 720 by Senator Runner. Consent with amendments, item 10, Senate Bill 582 by Senator Emerson. Could you call the roll on the consent calendar?
Lowenthal.
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Jeffries.
Aye.
Jeffries, aye. Shajian.
Aye.
Shajian, aye. Blumenfield.
Aye.
Blumenfield, aye. Bonilla. Bonilla, aye. Buchanan. Ing. Furtani.
Aye.
Furtani, aye. Galgiani. Logue. Logue, aye. Miller.
Aye.
Miller, aye. Norby.
Aye.
Norby, aye. Portantino. Solorio.
Aye.
Solorio, aye. 9-0, the bill's out.
9-0, the consent calendar is passed. We have an author, Senator Dutton. Please join us. Senate Bill 724.
Madam Chair and here to present SB 724. Before I do, though, I want to apologize because there was some miscommunication regarding some amendments got put in, taken back out, but it's a very simple bill. It basically would require that the Air Resources Board notify applicants for engine certifications within 30 days. 30 days that application is complete. And there's been some problems that a lot of times we have people that make their applications and then they don't hear anything for a while. And this would just basically put a requirement on that within 30 years you have, or 30 days, 30 years would be a long time, but 30 days, their application is complete or not, so that they can do the initial work that's necessary. And
Second.
This pretty just simple, straightforward, and we would request an aye vote.
And are you saying with amendments?
No, there were some amendments put in that shouldn't have been put in. I believe it's corrected now. Is that correct? It's just simply a 30-day.
As proposed, the amendments
Correct.
are proposed.
Yes, as it came over, right.
Excellent. Perfect. And do you have witnesses?
I have
in
witnesses.
support?
I have John Dunlap here, former chair, actually, of the California Air Resources Board, that would like to testify regarding the bill.
Thank you, Senator. Madam Chair, I come before you today representing the CERT Coalition, which is a 17-member trade association group, and we're in strong support of the bill and the amended language. It'll make a real improvement for us, and we appreciate very much your consideration and encourage you to vote aye.
Thank you. Next witness.
Madam Chair, Dave Ackerman, representing the Associated General Contractors. We are a member of Mr. Dunlap's organization and are in support of the legislation. Ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Kevin Pedrati, representing the Engineering and Utility Contractors Association and the Golden State Builders Exchanges, in support of the bill.
And Chris McKaylee on behalf of the California Grocers Association, also in support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Are there witnesses in opposition? Are there comments from members? Yes, Ms. Buchanan.
I have two questions. What is your reason for not taking the amendments? Because that's the version the Senate voted for on the floor, right, with the amendments?
No, not with the amendments. There was a mistake made. The bill was amended to take out everything, all provisions except for the 30-day requirement. The amendments would have actually put in a lot of the things that were agreed to in the Senate to not be in the bill. And so there was a confusion, and so I think there was amendments went back and forth a little bit, but it's back to what it should have been when it came off the Senate floor.
And what happens if it's not, if someone submits, when I read the analysis, it said that most frequently what happens is the notices are sent out 45 days before the registration is due, and then the DMV gets the request or the license renewal less than a week. Obviously, you still have an expired license because
that's a different bill. That's not this one here. This is for engine certifications only. It has nothing to do with DMV.
Okay. So, and if DMV cannot accommodate you within 30 days.
No, this is not. This bill doesn't have anything to do with DMV. This has to do with CARB.
We're
It's
not
SB 724.
Okay, so I apologize.
Oh, no problem.
Any other comments? If not, yes, other witnesses.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Andrew Antwi here today on the Western Propane and Gas Association. We support the bill. We support the restoration to the original version. Ask for an aye vote.
Would you like to close, Senator Dutton?
Just respectfully request an aye vote.
Well, I want to thank you very much for amending the bill, and I'm happy to support it as amended. I think that certainty is what people are waiting for. Really appreciate your ability to put the wording in.
Well, and Madam Chair, that's some of what we're trying to do. We're trying to make minor tweaks, changes, things like this, so that the business community can have a little bit more certainty when they're going through the expense of trying to put applications through. So I appreciate your help, and I appreciate the help of your staff. Thank you.
Yes, Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Questions to pass is submitted to appropriations. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Jeffries?
Aye.
Jeffries, aye. Ashajian?
Aye.
Ashajian, aye. Blumenfield? Aye. Blumenfield, aye. Bonilla? Bonilla, aye. Buchanan? Buchanan, aye. Ing? Frutani? Frutani, aye. Galgiani? Galgiani, aye. Logue? Logue, aye. Miller? Norby?
No.
Yes. Norby, aye. Portantino? Solorio? Solorio, aye.
Miller.
11-0, the bill.
11-0, Senator, your bill is out.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee members.
Senator Price?
I was yapping in Miller's ear. You could ask him again. I distracted Miller.
Miller, aye.
Vice Chair distraction.
Yeah, that's 2 votes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome, Senator.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. Let me begin by accepting the committee amendments. Very well thought of, and I think will help improve the bill, so I'm happy to take those amendments. I'm presenting today Senate Bill 734, which promotes California small business participation on the multi-billion-dollar high-speed rail project by, one, requiring the authority in developing its business plan to include a strategy to ensure participation of California certified small businesses in contracts awarded during all phases of the project. And it also requires the authority, in conjunction with the Department of General Services, to prepare an outreach and retention plan to ensure that state contracting agencies meet participation goals for small businesses, micro businesses, and disabled veteran business enterprises. We believe that the authority has limited resources to develop strategies that ensure these small businesses fully participate in contracting and procurement opportunities on such a major infrastructure project. As you probably are already aware, small business participation is vital to our economy. Small businesses function as economic engines and play a significant role in the state's $1.8 trillion economy. Businesses with less than 100 employees are more than 98% of all businesses and responsible for employing almost 57% of state workers, in the state, excuse me. Senate Bill 734 also raises the awareness and the importance and challenges of California micro businesses. and it grants them an additional contract preference of 2.5%. These smaller businesses consist of fewer than 25 employees and have an average income of $3.5 million or less. Yet they bring real diversity to local economies and the state. These businesses, however, are frequently overlooked in getting their fair share of California contracts. Although they comprise over 80% of California's certified small businesses, and while it is in the state's intent to afford micro businesses the same opportunities as other small businesses to compete for state contracts, many micro business owners are disadvantaged when competing against their larger small business counterparts. Given the depressed economy, high unemployment rates, and the positive impact of the high-speed rail will have throughout the state, it's important that we ensure that the authority operates with a clearly defined program that will provide opportunities for California small businesses, including its micro businesses. And I am pleased to say that the bill has received a good cross-section of support from a number of businesses throughout the state, businesses and business organizations throughout the state, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Do you have witnesses here?
We do have Mr. Aubrey Stone from the California Black Chamber.
Good afternoon. I'm Aubrey Stone, California Black Chamber President, and I fully support this bill. It is, in this day and age and our current economy state, this I think is be a great shot in the arm, and $6.3 billion project will go a long way to moving us in the direction we need to go. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, my name is Keith Lagans with Strategic Counsel. I'm here on behalf of the Sacramento Black Chamber of Commerce. SB 734 will encourage participation of small businesses in the high-speed rail project by establishing a small business preference, requiring outreach and information to small businesses about contracting opportunities. We are particularly enthusiastic about this measure because it also broadens the state's interest to include opportunities for micro businesses that are a fast-growing part of the state's business community and constitute a significant part of the Black Chamber's membership. A micro business is defined as a small business earning $2.5 million or less in average annual gross revenues for the previous 3 years, or is a manufacturer with 25 or fewer employees. They are an important part of our economy. High-speed rail could engage thousands of small business and micro businesses, which could help bring this visionary approach to public transportation to life, while generating new, high-paying jobs. We strongly urge your support of an aye vote on SB 734.
I'm Linton Borden from the California Conference of the NAACP. For the reasons previously stated, we'd like to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Other witnesses in support? Are there witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, members? Yes, Mr. Norby.
My concern about placing this on the high-speed rail the high-speed train program. It's going to add to costs because you're giving people a break other than just for what are their upfront costs. It's going to add to the cost of the program. I've seen a lot of these programs come through, and it seems if this is going to work as a transportation program, we need to build it as competitively and as cheaply as possible. And this seems like it's going to fly in the face of that. If small businesses are competitive, then we want them to compete with everybody else, not to give them a break. And to the extent that we give them a 2.5% break, we make them really less competitive in the larger market because they're used to this break, and we also stigmatize them by making it look like they cannot compete against other types of businesses. There's also an assumption that small businesses are struggling and not as profitable as large businesses. Now, General Motors is not a small business. It's not a micro business. It's a huge business, and it's lost a huge amount of money. But the jobs that are there are just as important to people of all colors as the jobs that might be protected in a small business. So there are small businesses which are highly profitable, large businesses that are not. And just because one is big or small doesn't necessarily mean it's any more or less competitive. So there's a general comment. that reflect a concern about the bill. One specific question I had is the definition of a small business. I know micro business is defined as 2.5 million or less, 25 or fewer employees. Now, a small business presumably is larger. Does this put them in together, or does it have different?
Two separate categories, both by the state and the federal government. They have two different designations for small business versus micro business.
Okay. And the small business definition again?
The small business definition.
I apologize if I didn't catch it.
No, it's okay. Small business definition is usually 100 and fewer employees, and what's the $10 million in income.
Okay, that's gross income, not profits.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And so remember, on to your question. First of all, again, the purpose of this bill is to make sure that small businesses are included in the plan. We're not trying to dictate how that works, but we think there should be a plan that includes small businesses. We do talk about micro businesses and a set aside for micro businesses. Again, that's a specific designation that the state already has for small businesses. And again, we don't think that they'll be getting any special treatment. They've got to be qualified. They've got to be able to perform. We're just acknowledging the fact that micro businesses play a special role and that they should be given that opportunity.
Mr. Furatani.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator, for bringing this bill forward. I know we have an issue also, a bill on the Assembly side, I think in this very same spirit, by Ms. Galgiani. And I think it's really important as we look at potentially the biggest public works project in the world is going to be our high-speed rail program. Having everybody be able to compete for it. Small and micro businesses are a critical emerging part of the economy. When you get right down to it, they're the ones that stay in the state. They're the ones that are committed to the state, and they can't get the job done because they have to be qualified, et cetera, in order to participate. Also, a lot of the bigger contractors use them as a part of their overall team, and I think it helps the bigger contractors as well to use these subcontractors. So I think really the outreach that you're asking to do, I think also bringing them to bear in terms of partners in this big, huge project for California will benefit everybody in California. And it's not just a matter of people of color, it's not just able veterans, it's not just gender, but it's all small businesses and micro businesses. So I think it's a big plus, and I'd like to ask to be added as a co-sponsor.
Thank you.
Ms. Galgiani.
I'm pleased to be principal co-author with you on the bill, and I've appreciated the opportunity to work with you and your staff on it. And I just wanted to say, as author of the high-speed rail bond measure, our goal all along was to make sure that it was California businesses and California workers that have access to the jobs that will be created from the project. And with respect to Mr. Norby's question, the bidding preference is not a dollar amount that would go to any company per se or any cost to the state. It's rather an extra credit percentage during the contracting process. And I also wanted to point out that about 2 months ago, the Association for California High-Speed Trains, along with the California High-Speed Rail Authority, actually put together a bidders conference where they put the large prime contractors in touch with the smaller subprime contractors, and that was something that was actually embraced by the construction industry. It's something that they're accustomed to doing with all transportation infrastructure projects, and the industry actually welcomes that, and they are looking to partner with the smaller businesses because the volume of work with this project would far exceed the ability of just the large contractors to do this alone. And also, as we move forward, we want to be sure that as the companies, our global partners, come forward, we want to encourage them to partner with California companies and share their technology experience so that we can have California workers and small businesses, which include some of our Central Valley businesses, at the table of economic opportunity. So I thank you for bringing the bill forward.
Thank you, Ms. Galgiani, and you certainly have been a leader in this area. Appreciate your support. Also that of Chairwoman Lowenthal, who's been supportive and very concerned about this topic, and so I'd be very happy, Mr. Furatani, to add you as a co as well.
Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you. Generally, I'm pretty supportive of the bill. I just have a couple quick questions, if I may. With the requirement that they be California certified small businesses, that doesn't necessarily mean they're from California. They're certified to be operating in California. Do you know what the criteria is to attain that certification?
I don't, but it is certainly residency is a portion of that requirement. But you have to become. This bill is limited to those certified California certified.
Yeah, I saw that, and I appreciate that because I think with the business losses that we're encountering in California, I think we were up to 6 a week. Businesses exiting the state, an opportunity for us to take a project of this size and say it's important that we focus on the small businesses, especially those that we can try and retain and keep in California. Any costs that this preference may or may not have by awarding points to potentially someone who may bid a little higher but get some points off to become the lowest bid, or however it works, I think will be insignificant compared to the other financial challenges that face the overall project, but I think it's a win for us when we can focus with your bill on trying to get some of the businesses in California, the smaller ones, to get a bite at this apple. And so I do support it. I just wish we could tighten it up and say it's got to be California, homegrown small business, but we may not be able to achieve that with federal funding money coming in as well.
Well, I think Councilmember Galliani is working that angle as well. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I would just like to make sure that you add me as a co-author. I think it's a great bill, and I'm really pleased that you're going to focus on startups and give small businesses, micro businesses especially, the experience that they need to get themselves into the mainstream. And with a project the size of high-speed rail, I think it's very important. So with the amendments you've taken, I'll be supportive. Mr. Solorio.
Applaud the Senator. Thank you for bringing this forward. Since you're gathering co-authorships here today, I'd like you to consider adding my name. We'd love to have the high-speed train get to Anaheim. So
get on board.
Anything to take it there, as well as we want jobs in Anaheim as well, including for small businesses. So I appreciate your leadership.
Mr. Solorio and Mrs. Buchanan as well.
Would you like to close?
Appreciate your support.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
The motions to pass is submitted to Jobs and Economic Development. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Jeffries?
Aye.
Jeffries, aye. Ashajian? Lumenfield?
Aye.
Lumenfield, aye. Bonilla? Bonilla, aye. Buchanan? Buchanan, aye. Ing? Furtani? Furtani, aye. Galgiani? Galgiani, aye. Logue? Logue, no. Miller? No. Miller, no. Norby? No. Norby, no. Portantino? Aye. Portantino, aye. Solorio? Solorio, aye. 9-2. The bill's out.
9-2. 9-3. Your bill is out,
Thank you,
Senator.
Madam Chair. Members, thank you.
Thank you. The next bill we have is from Senator Lowenthal, Senate Bill 739.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Senate Bill 739 requires the ports of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Oakland by July 1 of 2012 to assess their infrastructure needs and also their air quality improvement needs, including, this is critical, assessing the total costs of these projects and identifying potential sources of funding for them. You know, there have been several plans for either goods movement infrastructure or for reducing goods movement emissions, which are now several years old. And they don't, but the critical thing is they do not identify where the funds will come from to build these goods movement infrastructures and to reduce emissions from goods movement in California. The emission reduction plan by the California Air Resources Board says that to reduce the emissions down to the 2001 standards, it's going to cost us an additional $6 to $10 billion. Additionally, Governor Schwarzenegger's passed Goods Movement Action Plan estimated that goods movement infrastructure costs will exceed $20 to $30 billion over the next decade. So we put this together, we're talking about somewhere around at least over $30 billion. There was $3 billion in Proposition 1B for goods movement. $2 billion of that was in the infrastructure, $1 billion for air quality. We're really looking at having a plan to come back to the legislature just to understand where the additional $23 to $27 billion for both the infrastructure projects and the air quality projects are going to come from, so that we can have a full discussion on that. There is no opposition to this bill. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Your support? Witnesses, please, in any order.
Tom Addison with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. Good afternoon, Chair and members. We're pleased to support this bill. We think it will help the Port of Oakland in their goal to reduce emissions from the port. The Port of Oakland is a significant public health risk in the Bay Area, and we're looking forward to this bill being passed, and they're coming up with a plan to cut their own emissions.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Paul Gonzalez on behalf of the South Coast Air Quality Management District in support of the bill.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Christina Ives with the Sierra Club California, and we support this bill.
And good afternoon, Madam Chair. Bonnie Holmes-Jen, American Lung Association in California, and we're very concerned about communities' lung health and other public health impacts for those communities living near the port. So we do urge your aye vote.
Madam Chair, members, Justin Malone on behalf of the Union of Concerned Scientists and the League of Conservation Voters, both organizations in full support. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, Danielle Osborne Mills on behalf of the Clean Power Campaign here in support of this bill.
Any other witnesses in support? Are there witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, let me ask the members, are there any questions, members? Yes, Mr. Furutani.
I also would like to thank the Senator for this bill. The issue of our ports and dealing with the quality of air is an ongoing issue, something we have to stay on top of. And you've been a leader in this area, Mr. Lowenthal, and I thank you very much for this bill, as well as many others in your illustrious career. And please, if you could add me as a co-sponsor.
Thank you.
Seeing no other comments, Senator, would you like to close?
I just urge an aye vote on a very reasonable bipartisan bill, I hope.
Thank you, Senator. I, too, am very supportive. I think we've seen credible changes in the ports over the last 10 years. We've seen what they've done, but we'd like to know what they can do and what the costs are. And for that reason, I'm supportive.
And to work with them to identify where those potentially funds may come from.
Thank you. Could you please call the roll?
Motions to pass to appropriations. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Lowenthal, aye. Jeffries? Shajian?
Aye.
Shajian, aye. Blumenfield? Aye. Blumenfield, aye. Bonilla? Bonilla, aye. Buchanan? Buchanan, aye. Ing? Furutani? Furutani, aye. Galgiani? Galgiani, aye. Loeb? Loeb, no. Miller? Miller, aye. Norby? Norby, no. Portantino? Portantino, aye. Solorio? Solorio, aye.
Jeffries, aye.
Jeffries, aye. 11-2.
11-2. Your bill is out, Senator.
Thank you very much.
I thought I saw Senator Padilla. Last but not least, Senator. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I, too, will try to be brief with another what I believe is a straightforward bill. SB 859 is before you, which would permit electrical utilities to access residents' address information contained in DMV records to determine only the address of owners of record for electric vehicles. Purpose of this is to allow utilities to track the effect of charging vehicles on the electric distribution grid. As many have heard, literally thousands upon thousands of electric vehicles are expected to hit the streets of our nation, particularly here in California, in the coming years. And while they hold a lot of promise for reducing emissions, reducing our dependence on foreign oil, et cetera, we also must be mindful that proper integration of electric vehicles and the load that they represent to our electric distribution system is equally a concern. Can't afford to have rolling blackouts or brownouts in either mass scale or even at a very localized level. This information sharing is critical to that overall strategy. With me today is Sylvia Solis-Shaw on behalf of the California Electric Transportation Association to speak in support of the bill.
Sylvia Solis-Shaw on behalf of CalETC. SB 859 is a critical element in a three-pronged effort to ensure that utilities know to the greatest extent possible where these electric vehicles will be located. The DMV data plays a very important role as it is the only data that we would have that would help us locate where resold vehicles are being charged. The bill is very narrowly drafted to protect grid safety, reliability, and efficiency without impinging on privacy, and we ask for your support. Thank you.
Heidi Barsuli on behalf of San Diego Gas and Electric. We are in support of the bill. We think this is an important measure to allow utilities to ensure for the safe, reliable, and efficient integration of these new charging loads into our distribution systems, and we ask for your aye vote.
Russell Lowry with PG&E in support of the bill. Ask for your vote.
Alicia Priego with the California Municipal Utilities Association. We're the statewide organization representing publicly owned utilities. Like our counterparts with investor-owned utilities, we are strongly in support of the bill and believe this information is critical for managing our systems.
And Rod Brewer on behalf of Southern California Edison here in support.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support of the bill? Are there witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, questions of members. Mr. Blumenfield.
Thank you. I want to thank the author for bringing this forward. I think this is a really important measure, particularly in Los Angeles. They estimate by 2015, 1 out of every 10 cars could be an electric vehicle. So being able to figure out ways so we can balance that load is critically important, and then eventually get us to the next step where we're actually using the electric vehicles to help balance the load in the sort of the future world where electric vehicles are also batteries for the grid at some point is just an exciting possibility. And so this helps push us forward into the future, and I strongly support this bill, and I urge everyone to support it as well.
Thank you. Any comments, Mr. Norby?
This does plow new ground in terms of having to inform a private citizen, a private utility company, about what types of electrical uses he's having at home. It's an automobile. There could be other things that could require in the future. And it seems to me that if I'm buying electric power from a private utility or a municipal utility and they're selling it at a rate, then what I do with it ought to be protected. Now, if I want to voluntarily give up the information, that's fine. But to force me to say what I'm doing with electricity, it just seems to be going in a direction I don't know if we need to go. And maybe you could address that.
Sure. Well, two things. Through the chair. Number one, if part of the question or concern is what information may be being shared with the utility, we're being specific that only address information where electric vehicles are registered is to be shared. Not even the name of the vehicle owner, et cetera, will be shared. Only address-specific, no more, no less. So the utility can run their diagnostics to the local distribution grid around that particular address to determine whether upgrades need to be made, wires, transformers, whatever it is, to ensure against any failure of the system. Second, so why electric vehicles? If we haven't had it in the past for whether it's washers and dryers, large screen televisions, any other type of appliance that may be a heavy user or consumer of energy. An electric vehicle, when being fast charged, is the equivalent of a small house. So I think just by volume, by scale, it's much more significant, and its potential to adversely impact the grid does rise to a level of concern for the greater good. That's why we're trying to address this in a very narrow way.
Mr. Jeffries?
Yeah, I guess most of my question was asked there. I'm having a real tough time getting over the privacy issue here. I mean, with all due respect to our utility companies that are here, I mean, it just concerns me that every Californian who buys an electric vehicle is eventually going to be in the database of some private utility company someplace, which is easy to cross-reference throughout the internet to find out who lives there and how many in the household. We've gone through privacy issue with street sweepers not being able to retain information, toll evaders not being able to obtain information. Now, suddenly, if you buy an electric vehicle, you're going to be plastered up on somebody's database, and that's okay. I just got real concerns over that, and I guess when you close, I'd like to ask you to convince me why any private utility company needs to know the addresses of every electric vehicle in the state of California, pert near, when you close. So, thank you.
Were you going to respond to that,
Well,
Senator?
in my close, I'll address it in my close. I don't know if there's any other questions or concern.
Mr. Shaji.
Thank you, Senator. If the information is based on a person who rents, when he or she moves, does that information have to follow those individuals wherever they move to, or it's only related to that location? What happens if you're not a landlord and you're renting a location?
Yeah, so if you change your address with DMV, but you're the owner of an electric vehicle, then
anytime there's a change, that information will go forward.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments? I did have a question for the woman from San Diego Gas and Electric. I remember from one of my hearings that they were doing quite a lot of research on usage in San Diego, and I wonder if you have any of the findings at this point.
We don't have findings at this point. We're still in the process of a rollout, but we are in a perfect situation there where we know where all the electric vehicle customers are prior to them even receiving the vehicle. So, but we do expect for this to be a problem moving forward because we won't know where the vehicles are going to be. And as the Senator mentioned, it's the same as putting a new small house on the grid. And when we look at the volume that we expect to be happening, we really do need to know where these new charging loads are going to be.
And one question for the author. Could a customer refuse to give an address? Of course, I'm not sure how that would work because the same time they buy a vehicle, they also have to purchase a charging unit that will be installed at their house.
Correct. There are exceptions made at the DMV for people who want to keep their personal information, very confidential and sealed, if you will, whether it's if you're a victim of domestic violence, those type of really special circumstances. So accommodations are made for that. I should also say, I failed to mention in my presentation that this address information isn't being shared without the notification of the electric vehicle owner. So it's not like you can be completely caught by surprise. I didn't know they were going to share my information. There's a disclosure requirement that your address will be shared, but address only. And if I may, sort of, is partly a transition into a close here, I understand and appreciate the privacy concerns. Trust me, when this bill went through Senate Judiciary Committee, it was the single biggest issue. But this bill, as amended by that committee, was sufficient enough to address the concerns on privacy that they had. And so I do believe this is a balanced bill, not only on privacy protection, but looking at the greater good to be achieved here in terms of system reliability of our electrical grid.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other comments, I would like to say I'm certainly going to support the bill. I'd like for you to add me as a co-author. And I remember well one of my first hearings up here on electric vehicles, learning about the need for all the utilities to understand where these clusters were going to be and whether or not they would have to build new transformers and so on. So I appreciate your following through and really allowing these new technologies to move forward. Thank you. Could you please call the roll?
We need a motion.
There was a motion and a second. Could you call the roll, please?
Lowenthal. DePass to judiciary is the motion. Lowenthal, aye. Jeffries.
Let me stay off.
Ashajian. Ashajian, aye. Blumenfield.
Aye.
Blumenfield, aye. Bonilla. Bonilla, aye. Buchanan. Buchanan, aye. Ing. Ing, aye. Furtani. Furtani, aye. Galgiani. Galgiani, aye. Logue. Logue, no. Miller. Miller, no. Norby. Portantino. Aye. Portantino, aye. Solorio. Aye. Solorio, aye. 10-2, the bill's out.
10-2, your bill is out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. So we add on.
We're going to add on for any members who need to add on to bills.
Right now. Sorry, we did.